All right. Welcome, everyone, to this webinar with me, Jill Whalen, and Nicola Bird. Um, just a little about me. I'm Jill Whalen, the author of the book Victim of Thought, Seeing Through the Illusion of Anxiety, as well as a blogger at whatdidyoudowithjill.com. And today I'm speaking with Nicola Bird, who kind of seemed like dropped a bomb on all of us in the on Facebook with her latest insight. Nick has a bunch of she's been doing some programs on anxiety and recently had some insight that where she said something to the effect of she saw there were no anxious clients, and then of course all her allegedly anxious clients freaked out with a little more anxiety about it. And, I was really curious too as to what she meant by it, and asked if she would do this webinar so we could, maybe hear a little more and see what's going on for her and what new stuff she has coming up as well. So let me turn it over to you, Nick, a little bit, and we'll get started here. Is there anything you want to say first, or?
No, it's really nice to be here, Jill. Thank you for inviting me. It seems like ages since we hung out together at the conference. So
yeah,
it's overdue actually for us to get together. I'm really here for questions from you guys. Like the insight that I have got something to start with. I've got props and everything. I'd forgotten. So the insight I had, it was 2 weeks ago, I think now. I'm sure most of you might have seen the video, but like just having the realization that there are no anxious clients. And what came to me as I was in the shower this morning, is so often the way, it was this kind of metaphor of describing like how I see what happened. And what I was pointing to in that video really were two things, I guess. One is that our world is created from the inside out. Like really, it's created from the inside out, right?
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I'd heard that before, but like really that's true. And secondly was like, wow, look at the power of insight, right? One new thought and the world in front of us changes. And what came to me this morning was this kind of metaphor, and then I've been cutting out things and creating props and stuff actually. So I did have something to share. So this is kind of how I see it, right? About the role of insight and the inside out nature. This is going to have some limitations, mainly due to my artwork. But if you imagine, this is why I was thinking about it this morning. If you imagine that there's this thing, and I'm going to use this light, right, to represent it, right? So my favorite light at the moment is beautiful. You can't really see it, it's all rose gold. It's beautiful. And please excuse the dog barking. That's someone picking my kids up. So if you imagine this light like this, and then this light is like infinite. It shines this way, that way, that way. It doesn't really have a form. It's, what we might talk about in this conversation is universal mind or pure consciousness, right? It isn't a thing, but let's pretend it's this light. And this is like pure shining, no restriction, no limitation, no time it's not here, no time it doesn't exist, no time it's never not present. Like it's the thing that's prior to all of it, right? And then what happens is this pure light gets limited through thought, right? And so here's one of my props, right? So it shines through this shape, right? All this is, I haven't got enough hands. This is like thought, right? Limiting how much light can get through. And then what happens is the light is shining, and it's shining through, and you can't see, there's a wall over there, but it's shining the light. Hang on. Oh no, it's one of those lights that goes on and off as well. My props are terrible. Right, it's the light that's shining through this cookie cutter, right? And it's shining onto the wall over there, and it's creating an image. And this, as thought shifts and changes, right? We know thought shifts and changes. then what happens in the kind of movie and what's playing out on the wall shifts and changes as well, all the time, right? As thought shifts and changes. So really, it's kind of like, you know, jiggling around here. The thought is limiting and expanding and limiting and expanding. And there's a play of light on the wall. And we look at that play of light on the wall that has got clients in it and children in it and Christmas in it and Christmas trees and presents that have been bought and presents that haven't, and you know, our mother-in-law and our partners and our husbands and all the rest of it, like life. That's life playing out on the wall over there, what looks like life. And we get really, it looks really real, right? That's the beauty of that movie. We walk around in that movie as if it's real, as if the person who's watching all of that playing out, like the person that's in that movie is us, and that's who we are. And when we are in this conversation, like looking at the principles or looking in this direction, like we get curious about like what's something other than what's in the movie, right? And we start getting interested in what is this thing called thought, and what is the light that's upstream of all of it. And as we get curious about the light, about who we really are, this starts to shift, right? And as if by magic, what I made earlier, right? It's the shapes changed. It's like there's more light coming through. Mm-hmm. And because here there were anxious clients being created through a limitation of thought. Pure consciousness limited by thought means that I get a fraction of the experience of what's really going on in real life, right? In reality, really. Is limited by thought, so it's limited. And one of the limitations it created was an idea of anxious clients. And then I had an insight, more light came through, and the limitation that was showing up as anxious clients, like the light shining through differently, there's a different movie playing. This is just all conditioned thought. And we always have the ability to transcend conditioned thought, and more light comes through. Now, what is the light? The light is peace, love, freedom, all that good stuff. And as more of that comes through, it dissolves these jags of, I guess, anxious thinking inside of me. It dissolves that thought, that limited, that thought that's constricting pure consciousness. And when that bit, that jaggedy bit there is anxious thinking, it dissolves in the light of pure awareness, and we're left with more light. The movie's full of more light. It's full of more peace. It's full of more truth. It's full of more freedom. It's full of more love. It's less restricted, less limited, less suffering. Yeah. And that's kind of, so to me, when I put in the post, when I described the video, I said, like, when you see again, there's no Father Christmas. My kids are outside the door. Stop putting out mince pies. Then when I'm looking at the world and it looks different out there, it looks like all of a sudden it's like, why would I want to spend time looking at the stories in the movie that's playing on the wall, when I know that exploring what's going on here with the light, exploring how that appears to veil itself through thought and give us an experience that's a limited experience of truth. Like, I'm far more interested in looking at the light. And when I look at the light, I get insights that bring in more light. And so to me, the beauty of the conversation, like the direction I want to be looking in, it's not going to work now, is in the direction of the light, not the movies that are playing on the wall. I'm not interested if your sister said she wouldn't come for Christmas dinner. I'm no longer interested if you haven't got all your presents yet and you're feeling like Christmas is really stressful. And I'm like, yeah, but the light hasn't changed. The light is the constant. This is what's interesting, not that.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the exploration into this, and more deeply and more deeply recently, is exploring who we really are. We're not the limited version of ourselves created through thought. We're not what's being played on the wall over there. Like, this is who we really are. And I want to get curious about this eternal, limitless, formless, beauty, love, joy, and freedom. Because the seeing more and the understanding more of that changes the very world in front of your eyes.
And I think that's the key, that I think where people are wondering, like, how does that, like, you're not saying anything now that you explained it that way to me. You're not saying anything different than you've always been saying, that I've always been saying. The stories are unimportant. We've been saying that forever. But
no, the thing that's different though, Jill, the thing that's different is I am this, not that. Right. And I hadn't really seen that before. I thought I was this person, real human, flesh and blood, walking around in the world, projecting reality. I didn't see that I was only ever a limitation of thought, an idea of me, creating an idea of the world. But this is who we really are.
So you're seeing that? Are you still seeing it? You had that insight a couple of weeks ago. Is it sticking with you?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I've had people come to me and yeah, Nick, but obviously there are still anxious clients in the world. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe there are in your world, but there just aren't in mine. Like, what I see is that I've had people come and express doubt to me, like, yeah, but like that, what? And that's me doubting my own insight, right? Right, staring me there in the face. That's my own doubt about, really? Coming back and asking me questions, right? Which is cool to see. And I have had a couple of people come up to me and say, but my symptoms, and I'm worrying about this and I'm worrying about that. I've seen a couple of posts in my Facebook and nothing like it used to be. But what I see, what I know to be true about that, and one of my teachers used this metaphor, and I think it's beautiful. It's like if you've got an electric fan spinning in the roof and you pull the plug on it, like, it doesn't vanish completely. Like, it's still got a little bit of momentum, a little bit of the fragments, a little bit of the habit of conditioned thought. That means there are, the old behaviors, the old way of seeing is popping up, but it's lost its power, it's lost its momentum. So it doesn't surprise me that there are a couple of anxious posts, and there are a couple of people with anxiety who are popping up in front of me again now. And that's just the remnants of my own, this bit kind of popping back up into thought just out of habit and then disappearing again. But there's something that happens when we have insight, is that we can never really go back to not seeing that.
Yeah. So that's interesting. What you just said reminded me of when I first started, decided I didn't want to do my old work, my old SEO work anymore that I'd been doing for practically 20 years. And, I was a pioneer in the industry, and I had people constantly contacting me. And when I decided not to, like, just like you said, like the remnants, there were still some people contacting me, but it didn't take long where it just kind of weaned off. And I don't see that anymore. I don't see that world. I don't see anything like that. So I get what you're saying there. But it's curious, I like what you're saying about it's you. Like, if you're still seeing some people with anxiety, that's because you have some remnants of it or something like that. It's hard to understand that. You hear that? I've heard that from other people too. The reflection, like we're just seeing a reflection of our own thought somehow. I don't know if there's more you can say about that, or.
Well, it's not even a reflection of our own thought. To me, it's like it's a reflection of our own understanding that's in front of us. So I mean, it's just that there's only one thing going on, right? There's one thing going on, which is, oh gosh, it's one of those. I've had to touch it carefully. There's one thing going on, and this is it. And everything else is, if you want to use the word, a modulation of this, right? Various versions of this showing up in the world of form. And so this is what's going on. And so this, the reflection of what I'm seeing in the world is a reflection of consciousness shaped through the cookie cutter of Nick created by thought, creating a world out there. So what I'm seeing is a reflection of my understanding. Now, what shifted in my understanding over the last couple of months is a profoundly different seeing of who we really are. Of seeing that there isn't a Nick creating a world of thought, but that Nick is a thought. Now, as I've seen that more deeply for myself, like seen that in my bones for myself, that this thing called Nick doesn't exist, isn't true, isn't real, has no, isn't what I thought it was. That seeing that is thought as well. That we don't have thought, that we are thought, we are a thought. That has shifted my level of understanding to such a huge degree. And the turning around and looking at who we really are, that shift in understanding means that what gets reflected in my world looks different. It's a reflection of my understanding out in the world. So if I know I'm not this thing called Nick, right? If I know that's not really who I am, if I even get curious about that, if I start looking at that, it changes everything in my understanding, and therefore the world in front of me looks different. So I can only ever see a reflection of my level of consciousness, right? Not level of consciousness. Delete that from the record. All I can see is my understanding of how life really works. Mm-hmm. So if I think that life works in a way that there are external circumstances and people and objects that if I can arrange those in the right way, then I'll be happy. What's going to show up in front of my very eyes are people and objects to manipulate in an attempt to get happy, right? Life's going to give me loads of those. Like if I think, yeah, no, I need to, change the money in my bank account, and I need to change my hairdo, and I need to get everything sorted for Christmas, and I need to set some good New Year's resolutions, and I need to give up smoking, and I need to, all these things. I need to be able to travel to the other, traveled out of my front door. All of these circumstances that if only they could be, like if my understanding is such that is where happiness lies, then every time I suffer, I'm going to look around, I'm going to see things to try and change. Now, if I then have a shift in my understanding and it looks like, oh, it's not the things in the world, it's something to do with my thinking. If I'm out in the world with that level of understanding, or that understanding of how life works, then every time I suffer, I'm going to look to my thinking and try and manage my experience. And there'll be a lot of thought there for me to go try and manage, and a lot of tools and techniques that will allow me to manage my experience, because it looks like managing my experience is my job. It looks like I have any degree of control over it. It looks like I can control it. It looks like there's something to do with it. So I'm going to see thought in front of my eyes instead of objects to manipulate. Now, with what I'm seeing is like suffering is a call to turn back around and go look at the light. That's all it is. And so it seems to me that rather than looking at thinking, trying to change objects in the world, it seems to me that there's an opportunity to turn around in that moment and go explore who we really are. That's what it's calling us to do. And so I'm not interested in trying to manage my experience. I had realized, Jill, that for years, working with the principles, what I had been doing innocently without realizing it was using the principles to have a better experience of life.
Mm-hmm.
helping my clients understand the principles in order to have a better experience of life. And I just see so many trip ups kind of in that direction. So much, I mean, that's just reinforcing the idea that there's something wrong with what's playing out on the wall. And so resistance to what is. And when we turn around and look at who we really are and we understand the nature of that, and we understand that everything is happening inside of this light, then the need to manage and change our experience falls away. Everything I was trying to use the principles, if you like, to do, everything I was teaching my clients to do was to manage experience, and none of it was necessary.
Would you say that you have less identification with, Nicola Bird, less identification with your physical self, body, life?
Yeah, more and more as I explore. More and more as I explore. Like I have much more of I was walking the dog in the woods yesterday. It was beautiful. I was walking the dog in the woods yesterday, and I was suddenly aware that it's not something, but this awareness, and into the awareness was coming all of the trees, the dog, everything were like, it was like, I don't know if you've ever been to a 4D cinema. It's the best way I have of describing it, where you sit in the seat and the movie, you have your 3D glasses on, so you're immersed in the movie, and something's like banging the back of your seat, and something's blowing wind around your feet, and then there's spray of water in your face, right? It feels like you're immersed in this whole experience. It feels like you're flying through space and everything's coming at you. But you're not, you're sitting in the chair and it's all coming to you. And that was the experience of walking in the woods yesterday. It's like Nick disappeared and there's just this experience of awareness with like a sensation of walking, and a sensation of color, and a sensation of movement, and no way to tell if I was moving forward or, like, there was no Nick walking forward in the woods. There was simple awareness and witnessing of everything coming into that space. And so, seeing that who we really are is something that never changes, is always constant, is the light sitting there witnessing all of it. Means that the identification with this little thing walking around in the world, like this thing's got so much agenda. It's got so many things that need to be a certain way. It's seeking all the time. It's dissatisfied all the time. It's lacking all the time. It's never happy. Can't be satisfied. And this thing arises because we don't understand who we really are. It arises and then experiences suffering. And it has an experience of itself as a person walking around in the world being dissatisfied. And to see that's not who we are. I mean, that sounds really miserable, right? But like, that's why most of us are destined to a life of eternal quiet desperation, right? Seeking, got to get the next thing, got to get the next insight, got to have the physical symptoms be sorted out, got to have the next client in through the door, got to have wrapped more Christmas presents top of mind, right? Like there's always something that this thing can find to go, well, it would just be better if a little bit more of this. And that would be really depressing if that was, I mean, it is for most people, that's their lives, right? This experience of me as a separate individual walking around, just trying to get and do and have and be just a little bit more stuff in order to be happy. And it's a never ending. But to have to bump into the conversation that points us towards, oh, did you know you're not actually that? And you're like, what? What do you mean? Of course I am. Like, I'd never. It's like such a mind bending, bigger than you can kind of get your head around, just idea to start with. And then if you're drawn to, as you start to explore that, like, what is that and what is that, right? Oh, I'm pointing to light, right? What is that? What is this? And are drawn to explore in that direction. There's just a freedom and a lightness and the world playing out, not and just a lack of being so involved with what's playing out in the movie on the wall, like the agendas of this that have got to play out in a certain way on the, like, it's all just so much less interesting, so much not front page news, as my clients have heard me talk about before.
But so life's still happening.
Yeah.
Everything's still, you still got your kids, your husband, your Christmas, your everything going on. What happens when the shit hits the fan? You may not know yet, but
In what way? Give me an example, Jill. What do you mean?
Someone gets really sick in your world or something like that, or you do, or, something that we consider in life to be scary and or something like that, that's still going to happen. This doesn't take away life.
No, it doesn't take away life at all. But what I see is like how much cooler life is with more love, peace, freedom, the whole freedom with from which we then walk out so we have our understanding, and as we get more, as we see more about who we really are, we walk around in our day-to-day lives, and we just are seeing with more love. We're showing up with more space. We're showing up with more options. We're showing up with less agenda on it. We're showing up with love to the person that's sick. We're showing up with love to the person that's angry. We're showing up from who we really are. It permeates our real looking lives more and more and more and more as we become intimate and more familiar and explore more our true nature. And the cool thing is that what we find is that we're free to be, like, because we're not so attached to what the movie is that's playing on the wall. We can, and I put a video out about this today, actually, we're free for any movie to show up. Like, we don't have to not get sick anymore. We don't have to not get anxious anymore. We don't have to not get angry. We can have all of it in glorious technicolor, like alive and bright and in your face.
Yeah.
Because this light can never be overwhelmed by any of it. Now, before we didn't know that, we felt like if you feel like you are a separate person walking around in this world, then by definition, you feel limited, right? By your own skin, right? You feel limited. You feel like there's a time when you can not exist anymore, right? If you are your body, there will be a time you don't exist. And we walk around in fear and mustn't get scared in case I give myself a heart attack and kill myself, or I'm really worried about my physical body, or I'm just, feeling this lack and dissatisfaction all the time, because we feel like we truly are this thing that's limited in time and space. And as we start to see we are not that, then this thing stops getting so defensive and so grasping and so protective and so controlling over the movie that's playing on the wall. And instead, the knowing of the freedom of this like permeates that, and all of it can show up. So we get life in brighter colors and a permeation. I love that word. It just is so, it's like the light permeates more and more and more into the everyday world.
I often compare it to, like, this is like a dream. It's no different than, if mind or whatever is dreaming, and so this is a dream. When we're in a dream, it feels real, and we get mad at people in the dream, and things happen, and it's scary and whatever else, but then we wake up and it's gone, and you're not going to like stay mad about what happened in the dream. And I mean, it seems to me, and I probably only see it more at an intellectual level, but I feel like that's the same thing as what you're saying, that we're just this character in a dream. And the more you see that and look in that direction, the less you have to be scared of it and what's happening in it, because it's just going to poof anyway. At some point you wake up.
Well, it's like we start to see that whatever shows up, it's just a different play of the light through. It's just all that ever shows up in life in front of us is just a different play of the light, right? Like changing, shifting form. And so all of it's allowed.
Yeah.
Like, so we don't have to not have panic attacks anymore. Do you know how many years I spent trying not to have panic attacks? Like, to not have to not do that anymore. That, they're showing up because that's what's here to show up right now in this moment. That's the way the light's playing. You can't control the light. There is no you to control the light. The light's showing up in the form of panic attacks, and then it's showing up in the form of a cuddle with your child, and then it's showing up in the form of a number in your bank account, and then it's showing up in the form of a thought, and then it's showing up in the form of a feeling, and then it's showing up in the form of a dog, and then it's showing up in the form of war. Every single form you can imagine. And it's all consciousness. It's all pure consciousness. The amount of times that I've spent in the past with clients talking about, well, I got to try and believe these thoughts and not those thoughts. No, they're all just consciousness showing up in different forms. That's it. There aren't good thoughts and bad thoughts. There aren't wise thoughts and stupid thoughts. There aren't thoughts that you shouldn't follow and thoughts that you should. There aren't different levels of consciousness. There's just one thing going on. This light shifting in shape and form through thought, limiting itself, and then less limited, and then limited and less limited, and limited and less limited all the time, just through thought. More form, less form. More form, more mushy kind of form. More form, dreams at night. Massive panic attack and freak out, feel really separate, really alone, really disconnected from everything. That's just consciousness incredibly limited by thought. That's like this with like the top of the head showing, and that's the only thing that's showing. It's like a tiny amount of light and just a whole pile of thought, but it's all consciousness like that. This and this, right? All conscious. There isn't anything that isn't it.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that we have to sort through our thinking, the idea that we have to manage our experience, the idea that we shouldn't be having panic attacks, the idea that there are anxious clients or not anxious clients, that anxious clients are appearing in our world or they're not. It's neither here nor there. It's all, there's nothing that isn't the light. Nothing.
As you know, though, those people who still are feeling anxious are going to be, yes, but how does this help me? And I know you're saying, look more towards the light, and you'll see how that could end up helping you. But that's looking in the wrong direction too, by wondering how it can help us, because that's not the goal.
Well, you see, Jill, I'm not seeing people ask me that. That's the thing, right? You're like,
they're coming to me and saying,
yeah, exactly, and that's cool, right? Because you like, they're coming to you because there are questions that you can answer that you need to answer for. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But I literally, was it yesterday, day before, I was thinking to myself, look, well, maybe they are there. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm deluding myself. Like, maybe I need to think about resurrecting. I've turned all my old programs off and everything. Like, I need to go back and have a look at those old programs again. So do you know what? I'm going to go and have a look. I'm going to see if I can find them. And I went down my Facebook group, and I went down into my inbox, and I went into my Facebook page, and I went everywhere that they would normally be, and they're just not there. So I can understand that where people are saying, yeah, but they are there. I am here, right? and am I seeing people who are confused? Yes. Am I seeing people who are cross? Yes. Am I seeing people who think I've lost the plot? Yes. That's me seeing me all over the place, right? Oh, have I lost the plot? I don't know.
That's so cool.
Right? That's me seeing me, but it's the argument, yeah, but Nick, there are still anxious people there. It just shows that we haven't yet understood. No, the world's created from the inside out, and consciousness reflecting through Jill creates a particular movie on the wall in which there may or may not be anxious clients. And through me, it was the consciousness showing up in a particular flavor, if you like, that contained anxious clients 2 weeks ago, and then at 5:30 that Wednesday evening, took them out of the movie.
It's so funny. That's so interesting.
Yeah, huge. And I've seen it before on smaller levels. Like, my thinking used to be full of worried migraine thinking, and that never shows up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. Like that those objects, those thoughts, which are, people with anxiety is nothing but a thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the thoughts of migraines are nothing but a thought. And thought shifts and changes all the time. It comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes. And those thoughts for me are not they don't, imagine me walking in the woods, the thought of migraine doesn't appear in my consciousness anymore.
And so you don't have migraines anymore.
I do have migraines from time to time, but the thoughts of migraines that used to be 24/7 in my consciousness, in my face, gone.
And now they just come. You might have one, and
I have one. I have
you
one.
Don't. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I just think about them 8 hours a year instead of whatever 8 times 365 is.
Right. And that's not you trying to think of them less. That's just what's happening.
No, it's just a shift in understanding. Shift in understanding shifts the light. So it's like this, right? Shifts the light, and the light shines on the wall in a different shape.
Yeah.
So if people think that going in and trying to change the light on the wall, like, can you imagine how ineffective it is for me to go up to my wall here?
Yeah.
That's what people are trying to do.
Oh, so
get
that's
the light in their hands and shift it and change it. It's an impossible task.
That would be the same as trying to change thoughts. That would be the same as that. Is that the
well, it's trying to change this. It's trying to, like, changing thoughts is like, oh, I'm going to try and change what shape thought shows up in today so that it limits my reality in a different way. It's like, there's no need to do any controlling. I am a thought.
Talk about that a little more. I was just going to ask you mentioned that before, and I am a thought. Like, that's going to confuse people, I imagine.
Well, it just seems to me that we can look out of the window and we can see that the weather is thought, right? So I can look out of the window and go, oh God, it's raining. That's so miserable. And there's a miserable rainy day out in front of me. And then the next day I can go, oh, look at that. I love it when the rain falls outside the window and makes that noise, right? Same rain, created differently through experience, right? The rain is being created through thought. I see that. I look at my kids, one day they're picking their nose and it's annoying, and the next day they're picking their nose and it's cute. And I'm creating an annoying or a cute child through thought. Like I'd seen that everywhere. Like, well, that's made of thought. Migraines are made of thought. Like, my relationship is made of thought. My business is made of thought. I hadn't seen that. I hadn't seen my clients were made of thought, but I hadn't seen, they took longer to see than me. Suddenly someone said to me, suddenly I heard somewhere, somehow, why would I be the only exception? And then I realized, like, if I take a look, I come and go all day long, just like a thought, right? Like sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm even in this call, right? Sometimes I'm aware of myself. Like I might be thinking, oh, what are they thinking? I'm seeing myself looking like the light isn't looking good or that my hair's looking dreadful or whatever. And sometimes we're just in this conversation and I've lost, and any idea of me is gone, right? It's just us, this whole experience of conversation. Like the idea of me is gone and then it's back and then it's gone. Just in the space of an hour. And let alone if I walk around in my day and sometimes I'm watching a really cool movie on TV and any idea of me vanishes. And then it comes back again and then it disappears and it comes back again. And there's something that watches the coming and going of all of it that's constant and never goes away.
Is that what's having the thought of, you said you are a thought, so is that light what's having the thought of you?
That's the awareness. That's the awareness into which the thought is occurring of me.
Say that again.
It's the thing into which the experience of me is occurring. Yes. So there's okay, a new prop. Right, so say this is me, right? Instead of this is me, but like this is me. And into the light of this comes an experience of a Nick. Oh, look, here she is. And then the experience goes away, but the awareness never goes anywhere. And the experience of Nick comes back and it goes, and it all appears to this. It's actually made of this.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that isn't this. There can't be. This is prior to everything. Prior
Right.
to everything. And so the experience of Nick occurs to appear. It appears and it disappears and it appears and disappears. But there is still something that's constant through all of it. And that is who we really are. That pure awareness. There's the one of those to which there's an experience of a Jill and a Nick and a Barbara and a Margaret and a James and an Anne appearing and disappearing. And then through the light of this, a whole world of light and thought and shifting thoughts and light that looks really real to us 7 billion times. Mm-hmm. One thing at the source of all of it. That's who we really are.
Yeah.
That's why it's worth looking at the light. It's the one thing it's the thing that's constant, whether if you imagine in a day, there's you wake up and you feel calm, and then you get up and you brush your teeth, and then you have your breakfast, and then you might have a fight with your partner and get really angry, and then they might go off to work and you might feel really sad, and then you might have a massive panic attack, and then that calms down, and then you watch TV and forget all about it, and then you make your dinner, and then you feel really full and you wish you hadn't eaten so much, and then you go out shopping, and then you go dancing, and you get really, 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 really drunk that night, right? And there's something behind all of it that never changes. Whether you're drunk or you're sober, whether you're fighting or you're calm, whether you're peaceful or in the middle of a panic attack. Mm-hmm. There's something underneath all of that, this light of awareness that's just watching all of it.
Yeah. And I love the idea of it. It's like looking at everything through our eyes. It's just kind of like neutrally enjoying the show of,
Yeah.
whether good or bad, you know,
Yeah.
whatever it is, it doesn't care. It's all neutral, and it's just enjoying whatever happens, whatever
Yeah.
happens. We have a few people who have some questions.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take any.
Let me unmute Barbara if you're there still. Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you so much for this. This is amazing and wonderful and helpful. So the first question that came up for me was when you talked about when anxiety disappeared from your.
Oh, you muted yourself. There you
My
go.
question just on clarity was, were they still existing, but you didn't see anxiety, or did they actually come out of your sphere of existence, or both?
There were both. As in, suddenly emails stopped coming into my inbox, and so many emails coming into my, like 10% of emails coming into my inbox. Clients literally cancelling out of my diary for that week. And the clients who showed up, we ended up talking about anything other than anxiety, talking about the light, having wonderful conversations about the light. And the emails that came in were like beautiful thank yous or logistical questions. So it wasn't what I expected to see as a result of my understanding was that I would start seeing people, and I would see that what had happened for me before was that when I bumped into the principles for the first time, I was a business and marketing coach, and people would come to me and I would see a really simple, they don't know how to have a sales conversation, or they don't know how to write a sales page problem. And then over time, what would show up is like people would show up, but what it would look to me is like a misunderstanding of how life works problem. Similar questions, but different. I'm seeing them differently. And what I imagined would happen, because see, this is the thing, we imagine what insight we're going to get, right? So I imagined that at some point I get, and I was having insights. What I was seeing was that people would show up and I would know fundamentally that no matter how much they try and convince me there's something wrong with them, that they were unbroken underneath all of it. Like I knew that there was no one that could convince me that they were such a mess that there wasn't any innate health underneath all of that. I just couldn't see that anymore. But I still saw clients, and what I imagined would happen is that literally people would show up and I'd be going like, yeah, why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? But actually, I never expected that they'd just get vanished because they never existed in the first place. That was the totally unpredictable nature of insight is we see things we're just not expecting. Like they don't exist. They were never there in the first place. They were thought. They were a play of light on the wall in a movie. And then the light, and then the thought, the limitation of thought lifted, a bit more light came in, and there was no expression of them on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. It kind of reminds, years ago, I had this dream that's always stuck with me. And I don't think it was really a dream. I think it was this, where I went from one experience to another. At the time, I thought of it as life, but in one moment, it was consciousness looking through a horse. And I had all these things happen. And then I was like a robber. And then I was a savior. And then I just went from one to another. And there was zero judgment. It was all just about experience. And being a horse was very interesting. So I was like, how come nobody knows I'm conscious? Like, how come no one says hi to me? Oh, well, that's okay. It was hilarious. But I woke up with so much freedom. That's just amazing.
Well, it's a seeing of something that's more true than we'd seen before. There's more light. There's more light, and we see something that, and just tiny bit of light makes a huge difference to the world outside that we walk around in. So we see something once, we get a glimpse of it, and it changes. This tiny amount of light changes what we see in front of us.
Thank you so much for sharing.
That's all right. You're more than welcome. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. We have Ivan has a question as well. Oops, I just lost him there. Can you unmute yourself, Ivan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hiya.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Nicola, for this wonderful webinar. And Nicola, I love you.
Thank you. What a great way to start a conversation.
Yes. You're so spot on, I think. I had a similar experience some years back when I realized I'm not my label, even. I'm not my work, I'm not my hairstyle. It began when I shaved my hair, and nobody commented on it. Nobody.
Wow.
And I had been afraid for it for years. I wanted to do it. So, am I invisible? Don't I exist? And yes, I don't exist as my hairstyle. And spinning that around, I don't exist as my name or any label I can set on. So.
Yeah.
So, who am I? What am I? And after some pondering and thinking and wondering, it took me some days. I realized, Sid once in a seminar said, there is only really one principle.
Yeah.
But that would be a short conversation. So that thought and that consciousness is a way to make it visible,
Yeah.
for as many as possible.
Yeah.
And when you talked about this, that we are talking about thought as we are living in our thoughts and so on, and that you realize, oh no, it's something beyond thought. And that came to me too a couple of years ago. I had a picture on my Facebook site that said, it's all thought. And I changed it. Can you read this?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all mind.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the one principle that's behind everything. It's even behind consciousness.
Yeah.
It's not our biological mind, it's divine mind that Sid talked about.
Yeah.
The power, the energy that's behind everything living on in this universe. And it's the light you're talking about. Through this energy, we are projecting on the wall everything we are experiencing.
Yeah.
And then when you were talking about our outside way of dealing with our world that I had before, I was very outside in. And then coming home to this knowledge of inside out, that I am energy. And we are all energy. So we are all one. And then meeting a client with anxiousness, of course it's me. Of course, it couldn't be anyone else.
Yeah, how could it be anything else?
Because, yeah, we are one. And then this talk about living in the feeling of our thoughts. I quit smoking back in 2008 after more than 40 years of smoking. And nowadays, there are many people quitting smoking. But in my world, quitting smoking and beginning smoking e-cigarettes, it's like changing one for the other. And saying that we're living in the thoughts, feeling of our thoughts, it's only changing outside in to another form. Thought is form, as we talk about it.
Yeah.
Because before thoughts, it's mind, it's energy. That's my
I think
view on.
Beautiful way of describing it.
So yes, Nicola, you are.
You know, I'm at the beginning of this whole exploring. No, I've been exploring the light since day one. I've been exploring the relationship between the light and thought and what's been playing on the wall since day one of bumping into the principles. But for me, the absolute earth-shattering starting to see was what you were pointing to, like when you cut your hair, right? Gosh, well, if I cut my hair, but there's still something that remains unchanged, what is that thing? Right? Like that curiosity about like who we are, like who are we really underneath? Like really, if you take away my family and my work and my age and my gender and my hair and my, like, all the things that I think I am, like what's left underneath all of that? And for me, that was a pivotal change and in where I started to look, and that's only been over the last few months. And there's this whole world of exploration that is just, it's like I feel like I'm wandering around this like golden palace with like, I keep stumbling across like, wow, that's so cool, and wow, that's so cool, and wow, that's so cool, and just an experience of like what's coming into consciousness is just more beauty and more love and more truth and more being and less agenda and manipulation and grasping and trying to change things and control things and change my experience, including changing my experience, and just seeing like there's just more. It's a very cool direction to explore in. So yes, agree with everything you said. It was a beautiful way of saying it.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Ivan. So I don't know how much time you have. There's a few more questions, but also might be a good time for you to tell us what you're moving into, what you were just talking about. And
I can stay till 10 past because I've got another call, but so I'm happy to stay another 10 minutes. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm exploring now. That's what I'm taking a group of clients, and we're all going exploring in that direction, looking at like what are we actually if we're not? What do you mean we're a thought? that
it's a biggie.
Yeah, what do you mean we're a thought is the first part of like as part of what we're looking at, and the other thing is like, wow, what is the nature of the light? That's it. So I'm doing that over at, like, I've taken down all my old programs for anxious clients. What I'm bumping into, like, it's so cool. I was talking to someone about this call yesterday, and I was saying, I was in it, there's going to be a whole bunch of anxious people who turn up, which would be really fascinating to see what the questions are and what questions I still have for myself around anxiety. Or it's going to be a bit like, you know, in The Simpsons when the angry mob go, right? It's going to be a load of people getting really angry with me. What do you mean we don't exist? What do you mean? You just said we don't exist, but I'm here. And instead,
I'm not letting them talk, don't worry.
Well, no, but look what shows up, right? Two beautiful comments from people sharing their experience of seeing the oneness of who we all are.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? I think that's really cool. So that's why I'm exploring.
So with your old programs, though,
yeah,
Because I know people were asking me. I mean, people were afraid like they wouldn't be able to access their.
No, I created a video for them all to let them know that, so anyone who's bought all my old programs has them for life, so that they can keep.
That's what I assumed.
And then going forward, it's everything I'm doing is over at nicolabird.net, and so I'm doing something called the School of Undoing. And so I have a whole bunch of clients there and people who are signing up to start in January with me as we go explore those two things, right? Like, so what do you mean we're a thought? And and tell me about the light. And so what I'm getting, why I was sharing that before, is what the people who are coming into my world, the people who are interested in exploring this with me. I don't know, I'm making this up because I'm still seeing who's appearing in front of me. But it's people who are drawn to know more about truth. That's it. And that might include people who would categorize themselves as anxious, so it might not. But it's people who are drawn to, for reasons they don't even know, they don't even understand what this is, but somehow they just want to know more. So that's the School of Undoing. That's all I'm doing next year. And to me, it's the School of Undoing because it's like this whole pile of thought we have around this idea of ourselves is like a stripping away layer by layer of that and letting more light come through. Like it's all those ideas and misconceptions and misunderstandings we have about who we really are. Like taking those away one by one and revealing what there is underneath, or maybe all at once. Right, but that's what I'm doing next year, and I'm starting that in January. So that's at nicolabird.net if people want to find it.
So is that a certain number of weeks or anything, or how do you know what?
Yeah, so I'm going to do it for the whole of next year because I don't do things by half. So if I'm going exploring, I'm putting on my hard hat and my boots and I'm going all in. But I'm doing it in 3 terms. So in England we call them terms, semesters, I guess, for you. So there's 12 weeks. And there's a break, and then there's 12 weeks, and then in September there's another 12 weeks. So
I may be joining that one myself. Definitely.
Yeah, come exploring if you want to put your hard hat on and your boots on, and
because I do get this stuff too but it's at an intellectual level. I could say it all. But, I wouldn't say that I've seen it at the same level you have yet.
To me, it feels like about 3 or 4 months ago, just like a door appeared in front of me and just cracked itself open that I didn't even know existed, Jill. And I walked through that door, and that's what I'm exploring now. And there's so much cool stuff to see there. So, I mean, I'm just doing with that. I'm doing weekly videos. I'm doing weekly Q&A calls, and it's just going to be really simple and just a beautiful, mind-boggling exploration.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to it. And as the marketer in me sees a gap to fill with you, not doing anxiety stuff. So I maybe will be trying to create my own anxiety program for anyone here or anyone else too, because I still see anxious people out there.
Yeah.
So I think I told you privately, I don't know what it's going to be or if I'll even do it, but I see the gap, and it seems like if I'm going to do it, this would be the time to
yeah. Well, and your book has been helpful to so many people already.
Yeah.
With what you see in your groups and everything that you run. So
yeah, and that's I mean, the Peace of Mind group and also my Victim of Thought group are still running all free for anyone who's feeling lost or abandoned, which they shouldn't be. But yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm definitely going to look into your thing because I would like to explore it more too. So and I'm sure many here will be interested as well. So why don't I think it's a good time to just you've covered plenty, and we all have lots to think about. I'm going to re-listen to this myself, and because you left us a lot of food for thought. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for chatting.
You're welcome. My favorite thing to be talking about at the moment. So my pleasure. Definitely my pleasure. Thank you to all of you coming up, showing up, sitting there. Like, I'd love any feedback you want to share, any questions. Nicola at alittlepieceofmind.co.uk is where you can reach out, and if you've got any questions you still need to email me about, or want to ask me more about, then I'll do my best to answer what I can.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, then I'm gonna, let me see, I forget how to unmute everybody, so I don't know if I'll bother. Whatever. All right, we'll just end the meeting then. Thanks everybody for coming. And thanks, Nick.
Jill. Thanks,
Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
everyone.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye.